This is Anastasia's story, and these are her words. My name is Anastasia. I'm in my 30s, and I found out I was donor conceived 4 years ago in 2018. I was born in Canberra in the early 90s. When I was 6 years old, my mother divorced from her husband, the man who I'd been told was my father, whom I never saw or heard from again. In 2018, I'd been speaking with a sibling who had contacted our estranged dad and had mentioned that I was a donor-conceived person. While hearing this story, I initially laughed it off, because to me, it was a story that sounded so far-fetched and unrealistic. While relaying this story over the phone to my mum, I found out the truth of how I came to be alive. I was 26 years old. I remember that night so vividly, a memory that is so uncomfortable and 4 years later still feels impossible to successfully emotionally navigate. I can still feel the silence over the phone, and I still hear the loudness of my mother repeating, "Please don't hate me, please don't hate me, please don't hate me." I still feel empty. I was in shock, and I am still in shock 4 years on. I am a donor-conceived person. My mother sought out this option when it was made aware that the man she married could not have children. My mother engaged in IVF treatment through a Canberra doctor who was told at the time to keep it a secret. I would like to highlight that keeping such a secret from a child is wrong. I would give anything to know the origins of my life as a little girl. 4 years later, my relationship with my mother is strained. For long periods of time, I could not speak to her. Personally, I have wanted to hear her simply say that she lied to me, and this has not happened yet. Processing this information as an adult has been tremendously hard. I have no psychological support. I don't even know where to turn to. I'm scared to tap into the feelings of hurt because they wipe me out emotionally for weeks at a time. I have felt sadness about my existence and my place on this earth. I have felt like a secret experiment and less of a human being. Even though feeling these emotions, I still have so many questions. Who is my father? Was he a good man? Do I look like him? What is his background? Is he healthy? Do I have brothers and sisters? These questions consume my mind every single day. I contacted the IVF clinic to find my biological father. The clinic took 2 weeks to find my mother's file, and the only information they would provide was a piece of paper that had details of my donor's blood type, eye colour, hair colour, and if the donor had any children. I was told that any other information about my donor was confidential. My mental health began to suffer, and I felt like there was a lack of support on where to go or who to talk to. I began to join groups on Facebook, and I tried to research on the internet. But all of this became too much to handle. I made the decision to pay for an American DNA ancestry test in the off chance that I might connect with a relative or to find out something about my genetic history. I was matched to a first cousin who was extremely helpful and put me in contact with his uncle, my donor. On the night that I found out I was donor conceived, my mum let out a giggle with a tone of worry when she said, "You have no idea how many times I would pray that you would never have a relationship with a brother." I felt sick. I wanted to recall every single sexual relationship I have ever had and the possibility that they could be a brother. I figured that none of my long-term boyfriends were, but the short-term one-night stands I will never know. In 2020, I received a new message from a person through Ancestry.com. This person wrote to me that they were very confused about our DNA match. It showed that we were closely related, possibly first cousins or siblings. But I was confused. When I had connected with my biological father, he had reached out to the clinic to find out how many children had come from his donation. The clinic had told him there was just one successful birth of a child, and we assumed that was me. But through this new ancestry match, it became clear that the clinic had no accurate data at all. This person and I were in fact brother and sister. I was the first person to tell Daniel that he was my brother and that he was donor conceived. This was a secret that was kept from him for 30 years. When I first met my brother Daniel, we began to connect some very scary dots. I had a sexual relationship with one of his best friends. The degree of separation was concerning. Daniel and I are 2 years apart. 4 years later, I am on edge as I realise that there may be many more brothers or sisters of mine out there. There are so many gaps in this space and much support is needed to help with mental health, parental support, rights to access medical history and avoidance of consensuous relationships. These are concerns I have as donor-conceived person born in the 90s. I hope that no future donor-conceived persons will ever have to worry about this in the future. I would like to thank Anastasia for allowing me to share her story here today.